everyone, and welcome to Sound Mind and Body, a podcast where we talk about how to stay healthy, balanced, and well of mind, body, and spirit in today's crazy world with a dash of woo-woo. I'm Sheila Melody, and you'll hear my guest laughing in the background there. I'm very excited to introduce my guest today. Her name is Linda Kammins. She is the founder of Linda Kammins Aromatherapy Hair Salon. And amongst other things, she has created her own Bioharmonics handcrafted natural hair and skincare products. She believes washing your hair less often and doing away with heavy hair conditioner will bring back better hair for you. Mm-hmm. She believes in encouraging the microbial environment of the scalp and hair, and she basically looks at your hair like a garden. So welcome, Linda.
Thanks so much. Great to see you.
Great to see you, too.
Great to be here. Thanks, you guys.
Well, I wanted to tell everybody a little bit about the story of how we met. It's very kind of interesting. Linda came into my strength training studio as a client. I was not her trainer. One of the other trainers did her sessions. But she sent me an email inviting me into her salon to do a hair oil aromatherapy treatment.
That's right. That's our most popular treatment. Go on.
Okay, and I understand why now. But at the time, I was like getting ready to go on vacation and all these things. And I thought, oh, that's lovely. You know, I'd love to come. Mm-hmm. It literally took me almost 2 months to actually make that appointment and come in. And right before I did, I kind of looked you up and I found the YouTube video of the hair oil treatment. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, oh my God, this is so exciting. I can't wait to do this. So I came in and did that. Mm-hmm. That was the first time we kind of got together. And then I decided to, you started to do my hair.
It was interesting because when you first came in, it was instant, don't you think?
Yeah, we just felt like we had known each other forever.
Totally. It was like, this is strange that it's just getting off the ground so quickly.
Right.
The feeling between us, like something was extremely familiar.
So comfortable.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's cool.
And so I decided to, cheat on my hairdresser, which is a very difficult thing. It's like I've had the same hairdresser for probably like 9 or 10 years, I think. And I just was like, it was another strange kind of synchronistic thing was that I always make my next appointment with my hairdresser when I leave that appointment. And for some strange reason, I had not made another appointment with her. It's almost like this was really meant to be.
Woo-woo number one.
Woo number one. When I was there the second time getting my hair done, Linda was showing me all the things in her salon that
I was saying that everything's personal. Like the photography was my sister and my brother-in-law did all the photography. And then I said, even the ducks, my father created and carved those ducks. And you said, I have one of those.
Yes.
And I said, you have a Tom Taber duck? And you said, yes.
And she said, I have this duck. Okay. It's a carved wooden duck. I got this duck in 1982. I worked for a guy who was the chairman of an organization called Ducks Unlimited. Mm-hmm. When you said Tom Taber, I had not heard that name forever.
Yeah.
And she said, that's my father.
Right.
So I was like, okay, I've never in my life met anybody else who had a duck, let alone that it was your father that carved that duck.
That goes for me too. I mean, only my sisters and people in the duck business, would have a duck like that. So that is completely
She
bizarre.
was like, okay, you're my tribe. That's it.
I know, that's what my sister said. Oh my God. Tribe.
She's the tribe.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, that aside, let's talk about you. Let's talk about your business, and let's talk about all the wonderful things that you're doing for our hair. First of all, why don't you explain how you got into being a hairdresser and how you started your own salon?
Okay, so when I was a kid, I was totally driven to do art. I couldn't wait to get home and do art. And I was kind of dyslexic. I still am. So school was not interesting to me. The only thing that was interesting to me was art. And my sisters and I all got into art as our businesses, But anyway, when I got to be about 16, I started playing with my friend's hair. I had a grandmother who made a big influence on me. She had shared with me all the herbs in our yard and how to use them. So I was already interested in holistic health, and I was already interested. Anyway, I had terrible allergies. We grew up across the street from an orange grove, and they were spraying DDT. And I was,
my gosh.
yeah. And, my mother later, when I was 27, she died of a brain tumor. I'm sure it was all the toxins, but I had terrible, terrible allergies. So my mother put me in beauty school at 17, and I thought it was the most horrific smelling thing I had ever experienced in my life with all those toxins. So I was very, very disturbed about, my art being such a stinky chemical, horrible thing, and I remember I made an announcement. It was probably 2 weeks into it. And I said, forget it, to the trainers there. I wasn't going to do all these chemical treatments. And it was very funny because the man who owned this business, he wasn't American. He had sort of a different attitude. And he said, I don't care. He says, you're making $5 a haircut for me, so we're going to not even look at that. And sure, it's totally illegal, whatever. So I got through beauty school like that. But then when I got out of beauty school and I was in a hair salon, and I started at a top salon in Orange County, and it was extremely hip, and it was just a trip, to think about how hair salons used to be with the loud noises and the groovy people. And anyway.
Yeah, talk a little bit about that. How were they? They were like, there was Christophe and all these different,
that came much later. I'm talking about the mid-'70s, I'm talking about people wearing platforms, big bell bottoms, and, having the open silk shirts with the scissors and the Coke spoon.
Oh my gosh! You're kidding.
That was the early days.
Oh my gosh!
If my mother knew where I was going to work, she probably would have died. But anyway, it was so interesting because, again, here I am in a chemical world. Here I am again. And I just didn't like this. I didn't like the fact that the music was so loud you couldn't talk to clients. I didn't like the fact that we were putting chemicals on the hair. So I was
like in a disco doing hair.
No, ridiculous. Seriously, every day was a party day. It was weird for me because I took this as an important thing. I really wanted to be the artist for hair. I loved hair. And I always saw hair as a living fabric, as a garden. I never saw it as this dead substance that you could put all rainbow colors on it and so disrespect it. I saw it as a living and beautiful and vital art and life, and that it had to be fed nutritionally. So I kind of went back to my grandmother's early teachings, and I started looking for alternatives. So people were saying, color my hair, and I was coming up with hennas and berries and such things. And I got away with that for quite a long time because nobody really had gray hair yet.
Right, back then.
All my clients are always...
you knew.
A lot of my clients were the same age as I was, and so... but then later, I think in the 90s, it was really after I opened my salon in West Hollywood, that I started looking for alternatives. I was so interested in chemistry. I even went to school and studied chemistry for a little while. And that was kind of boring and uninteresting. It wasn't the chemistry I was looking for.
Right, yeah.
But I did learn, and I did learn about the pH balance. I did learn about, I think of the body like an earth. We're mostly made up of water, just like the earth. We have microbes on our scalp and trees growing out of our head. It's
that's
very similar. And so when you see, a barren area that on the earth that hasn't grown, it's probably because of chemicals, and it's probably because of, not getting the amount of nutrition that it needs. And the first thing anybody does to bring back bio-gardening, they'll bring back all the microbes and bring back the pH and bring back the balance. Well, the body is really similar. It's the same kind of thing. So I discovered and started to learn that, the coloring, I found out about plant enzymes, and plant enzymes could work as a catalyst to bring the pigment into the hair instead of using peroxide or ammonia.
Oh.
So I always tell people the difference between the enzymes and the peroxide and ammonia is that the enzymes ask permission.
Oh.
They don't come blasting through and forcing themselves on you. The cuticle opens, the pigment deposits, and the cuticle closes back down, so you're left with really shiny hair. And it keeps the balance of the hair. It's not stripping anything away. And this seems to be very lost in this cosmetic world of poison. That's the way I kind of see it.
It's just like whatever it takes to get that look, they'll do, you know?
With the little bit of chemistry that I did study, the thing that I learned was that there was very little being taught about the hair having life force, you know, and that we mustn't put these kind of chemicals, you know, on the skin or on the hair. So none of this was being taught. It was just sort of like a means to an end.
Right.
I never heard anyone speak the way I'm speaking to you right now. That would have really helped me if I'd had a mentor that could have been sharing these things. But I had enough passion and enough drive that I couldn't let this thing not be looked at, you know. And I, at one point, almost gave up on the business because of the peroxide and ammonia, and it was so awful. So this wonderful thing happened. I learned about enzymes. I learned about many things. I even designed all my own skincare and hair care, and coming from this idea that these toxic chemicals were being derived from shampoo, like shampoo, for instance. You know, I was shocked at how shampoo had a byproduct after sitting on a shelf for 4 months. It would have nitrosamines, which are known carcinogens. And so this is never discussed. We don't hear conversations about how products go toxic and how...
So this is still happening, you think? Or are people becoming a little more aware?
Oh, everybody's becoming aware. It's still confusing. The language is like learning Greek, you know, so people are not understanding good chemistry versus bad chemistry. You have to actually kind of talk to someone like me to learn it, you know, because it's not like you could look at a label and understand totally what that means.
Right.
However, there are things that we're all getting very aware of, you know, like petroleum derivatives and sodium lauryl sulfate being a detergent, and these stabilizers that they put in the product, and people are aware of that. So it's when they're in combination together and with the sun beating on it, like you see in, you know, when you go to purchase product from what am I thinking of? You know, like a cosmetic store, you know, a beauty supply.
Yeah, beauty supply.
And you'll see the products like in front of the window with the sun beating down on them.
Never thought of that.
No one does. This is a very strange thing. This is where products go bad. So I thought, you know, shampoo was pretty benign, but I discovered, you know, that it wasn't. And so as soon as that made the news and people started looking at the carcinogens in product, then they wanted to see the lack of surfactants and the lack of methyl paraben and such derivatives that were causing a byproduct, you know. Anyway, I took a really super long time to learn, but that's why I call the product Bioharmonic, because there is harmony with the biomaterials that are put together. They're not fighting against each other. They don't require a heavy preservative, and all of this stuff is kind of nonsense. I'm a little vocal here on this.
So, well, you have like tons of information. So tell me, breaking it down to like, let's go back to why you think people shouldn't. Okay, let's say we're using your Bioharmonic products, which I've been using since I met you, and I love them. But why do you think people shouldn't wash their hair that often? Like I was washing my hair probably every other day, but you're like, how often do you think people should wash their hair?
Well, it's kind of like, you know, if you keep washing the topsoil off the earth, you're not going to have anything there to start feeding the nutrients into the earth. So we have a whole biochemistry going on our scalp that needs to be there. You know, that it was actually my husband who brought it up. We were in the car one day, and he said it again. He said, "Why do homeless people have so much hair?"
Oh my gosh!
You know,
that's interesting.
And you know, and oftentimes it's not even gray. You know, it's like so there's something bizarre about that. But I started really looking into it, and I started looking into what we've been doing. And I've always had the idea that the body is like the earth, and if we just break it down to the way we treat the earth, it's really simple to kind of figure it out. So I also heard that because I've been helping people to grow their hair back this way, and I've had success. And one of my clients moved back to France, who she had success. I couldn't believe that she followed my advice. In fact, it's always surprising when somebody fights me and says, "I'm not going to not wash my hair," you know?
Right.
And then the next time I see them, they went, "I went a week," you know?
Oh, really? I love that.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh my God, they are listening. Okay. So I started to see that people were indeed getting much fuller hair from not washing often. But the idea, okay, so back to the idea, she moves back to France. She sends me an email and she says, "Linda, it's all the rage here." She said, you know, and so I looked it up, and all the fashion magazines in Paris were all talking about this idea. If you want to grow your hair back, you don't wash it. Of course, it starts in France, right?
When was that?
A couple years ago.
Oh, okay. So it's just starting to.
And
you thought about this years ago.
Probably around the same time. That's what I thought was kind of interesting. It was synchronistic. It was about the same time. So what I read in the articles was that people were really complaining. They were going an entire month. So the idea was to go the entire month and then start doing once a week. So what they were saying was that their scalps were so itchy. And I thought, well, they're not brushing these microbes through their hair. And I have a wonderful wooden brush, and that's what you brush through the hair. It's called a Weedo brush. It's on my website. But it makes a big difference to have the right tool. And so, liken it to, a show dog or a show horse when they're brushed and they're so shiny.
Right.
And if we would care for ourselves a little more like that and really brush these microbes through our hair, you would see a lot more life on the hair. In fact, when somebody's hair has a lot of body and it looks like it's moving, those are microbes.
Oh, interesting. Well, on that note, we're going to take a short break for a commercial here.
Okay.
And then we'll come back and talk about that wonderful brush of yours.
All right.
Next week on Sound, Mind, and Body, we talk to family physician Dr. Sandeep Kapoor about being an old-fashioned doctor, having babies as a single gay man, and how the investigation into Anna Nicole Smith's death almost ruined his life.
So I was home. My babies were just about 8 days old. They were in the nursery with the new nanny who'd been there 4 days. She was a live-in, and my parents were there. Obviously, the birth had just happened, and my cousin was there from San Diego. She was actually working on a research project in my office. And so we had a pretty full house, and I was looking for my socks and trying to figure it out. And all of a sudden, my dad comes in with these armed police and detectives, and essentially what amounted to a raid on my home and my life and my person regarding Anna Nicole Smith.
Next week on Sound, Mind, and Body.
Hey, it's Tim Edwards, founder of the Inbound Podcasting Network and producer of Sound, Mind, and Body. If you're a regular listener of the podcast, you know that Sheila asks all of her guests how they stay of sound, mind, and body. Well, in part, my answer is my once-a-week high-intensity workout at Sheila's strength training studio, Inform Fitness in Toluca Lake. That's right, I said once a week, and here's the best part. It's only for about 20 to 30 minutes. However, it's not an easy-peasy half an hour, that's for sure. The workout is pretty intense, but it's extremely safe because my trainer Joe is guiding me the entire time. All of the movements are in slow motion and are in perfect form, hence the name, Inform Fitness. The workout's also quite effective. At the time of this recording, I'm 50 years old, and at my age, I should be getting weaker, but I'm not. I'm getting stronger every single week. You'll hear Sheila say several times here in the podcast that strength care is health care. Check it out for yourself. There's a free session waiting for you at informfitness.com. Click the button Try Us Free right there on the homepage. Fill out the form and enjoy a slow-motion, high-intensity, full-body workout in just 20 minutes. On the website, you'll also see that this offer applies to all Inform Fitness locations across the country. For a list of those locations, tons of videos and information regarding the Power of 10 workout, visit informfitness.com.
So welcome back to Sound, Mind, and Body. Our guest today is Linda Kammins from Linda Kammins Salon. And Linda, we were talking before the break about your wonderful brush, why brushing your scalp with a great brush is so important. The other things I want to talk about, just briefly, I'm going to touch on these. There's so many things with you.
Right.
Is why should we trim our hair according to the new moon cycles? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then what do our emotions have to do with our hair?
Oh, okay.
So let's start with the brush.
Okay.
I mean, you told me about this fabulous brush. I got it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
So why is it so important?
Well, it was designed by hand in Italy, and it is wooden bristles. So it has just the right amount of give. It's the best brush I've ever found. You know, if another better brush comes along, I'll be using that one. But for right now, this is the best brush I've ever found. So the idea is that you're using a brush that's not ripping at your hair or stripping ripping at your hair like a nylon brush would.
Okay.
This is not a natural fabric against a natural fabric, which
Right.
is your hair. So it's going to cause problems. And these are all on a micro level. You can hardly see the problems, but you start to notice the ripping up of the hair if you're not using the right tool.
So the name of the brush again is
It's called a WeDo. A WeDo brush.
And I'm going to put a link to that in the show notes for listeners.
It's on my website.
Oh, it's on your website
It's
too.
on my website. So everything that I think is important for you is on my website.
Okay.
And,
what's the website address? And we'll have that in the link too. That's lindakammins.com. LINDAKAMMINS.
There you go.
LindaKammins.com.
So the reason the brush is so important is because it helps to circulate and get dead skin cells off the scalp. And people say, well, my hair gets so oily so fast, I can't let it go that long. But if we got into the habit of brushing our scalps well and brushing the microbes through the hair, I went as long as 9 days the other day. I couldn't believe that my hair still looked good,
And
But
how long do you need to brush your hair?
5 minutes is good. 5 minutes is good. And you don't have to do it every day.
Okay.
I found that it works really best if you do it the day you're going to shampoo it. And you could give it 5 minutes to 15 minutes and really work on it. But it's like a good gardening kind of concept. You let the microbes do their job, and then you brush the heck out of your scalp and get all the buildup off your scalp.
Well, I know when you did the hair oil aromatherapy treatment, it was, you were brushing my scalp, and it was like, oh my gosh, this kind of hurts, but it was like you were really stimulating the scalp there.
Vitalizing, the blood vessels, and making the hair come back to life.
So when you did that, basically you took all the crap off of my hair. Is that what it was?
Oh, yeah. A lot of times people have styling products on their hair, and this just dissolves it. That's the interesting thing about aromatherapy. Essential oils, they're very powerful natural solvents, and they will remove everything synthetic and reinforce everything natural. So the essential oils are in the nut oil bases that we make, and it's a wonderful combination for hydration and the removal of synthetic chemicals. This was really big back in the 90s. People had so much synthetic chemicals in their hair, in the 80s as well, and I would get handfuls of crap. Fortunately, these days, people don't put that much stuff in their hair anymore, and at least my clients are really starting to take a look at, I can get as much body as I want out of my hair by doing this system of letting my hair get dirty and brushing it, and then it comes out really good, and I don't need any product. It makes me really laugh when you see a product called dirt. It's like, oh, come on. Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah. I actually heard of a product called something like poo something.
Yeah.
It was called No Poo.
No poo shampoo.
No Poo shampoo. So we have a couple other things to talk about, but I see our producer Tim has been sitting here eagerly listening, and I know he has some questions coming from the male point of view. So Tim, what do you have? What do you want to talk about?
Well, what's interesting, you actually answered one of my questions a second ago, and when you said that when you were brushing Sheila's hair, and Sheila, you mentioned that it hurt a little bit, and that you were bringing the hair back to life.
Yeah.
So what does that mean?
Well, same with exercise, right? You've got
to... Oh, that's so true.
You've got to move that muscle. The scalp is its own muscle and its own foundation. You've got all these little tiny veins that need to circulate. We also have these little veins in our scalp that are microscopic that are called Wnt and Shush, which are acronyms for something. But what they represent is, how much nutrition gets to the hair. And I have a microbiologist friend, and we've been talking about it because I actually think those little pathways get calcified, and then we're not getting the pigment coming back, we're not getting the nutrients coming back. So, and everything is about pH balance. So think of the earth again, what is causing the earth to have a problem, and that's your scalp. So is it the product you're using? Do you have a shower filter? Are you brushing enough? Are you using a nylon brush? What are you doing that's creating more of an issue? And then I think one of the things with men that I think they don't realize is that they think every shampoo is the same, and the worst part,
you just
cheaper,
don't care.
The better, right?
Right,
exactly. It's kind of a male thing.
Yeah.
But the interesting about that is that that's not true at all, because it can really wipe out your pH.
So what would so if my balance was off, what would be some of the negative ramifications of not having the appropriate pH in my hair?
Hair loss.
Okay, well, that's a big deal.
That's a big deal for guys.
And bad hair days, like
Yeah.
it's too flyaway, it's not working, it looked really good before I washed it, those kinds of ideas.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so are you the type of person, because of your knowledge, to be able to walk around and just look at everybody and
Yes.
go, healthy hair?
Really?
Oh, it's terrible. When I sit in the theater, it's like 50 heads are getting analyzed. Yeah.
All right,
like-
so analyze away. You know
Yeah.
I use cheap shampoo, so go ahead.
Well,
That's interesting.
I would suggest for you to let your hair get dirty, use the weed brush and the shampoo, maybe twice or 3 times a week. So make it very weak, I mean, with your short hair, you probably feel like I'll look like a rooster if I don't wash it or get it wet anyway. But if you use a very weak solution of my shampoo, I always give an applicator bottle so that you can make it weak, and it's just enough. You don't need too much, at all. And you start to understand it, then you start to understand it like you do your garden. Oh, this is what's working. This is what's working. And also back to the idea of our emotions, back to the idea of the way we talk to our hair.
Yes.
Okay, because, what's really interesting is how gardeners really care about
That's true. You're right.
about their plants. They talk to their plants. They have relationships, and guess what? Those plants bloom. So what is the difference between the plant growing out of our head and the plant in your garden?
Oh, that's so
there's
true.
there's an ego attachment to the one growing out of our head. It's like, oh, I hate you. You're not looking good. Da, 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 da. And these kinds of things cause problems. As we all know, negativity causes all kinds of health problems. But literally, the way we talk to our hair can change things. And just as a little side note, I thought this was kind of interesting, but back in the early 90s, I went to the Whole Life Expo, and there was this guy, and he was advertising meditation for hair growth, and he had a full head of hair, but there was all these pictures of him with his horseshoe bald head. And I'm
What?
like, yeah. I'm like, no, you're kidding, right? And he goes, no, I meditated my hair back. I mean,
Oh my gosh.
think about Bruce Lipton and the biology of belief, and perhaps woo-woo.
yeah. What's up? Woo-woo. Oh, we got to ask your questions too.
Perhaps, that is a lot more substantial than we would give it credit.
You know what's interesting is I don't know that I know anybody that likes their hair.
I know, right?
So my wife has, I think, beautiful curly hair.
Yeah.
And she wants straight hair.
Well,
And I have
people who want
straight hair.
want
I'm
curly
like, I
hair.
have no body. It's just dead straight. But it's getting better.
yeah, exactly.
Well, so perhaps if we changed our attitude towards our hair,
Yes.
maybe
Well, changed our methods and our attitudes, because the methods I'm speaking of are really important. So once we have a little education, our hair will change. And a lot of my curly head clients who come in with tinted hair and it's really stiff and it just looks frizzy if they don't put all this stuff on it and blah, blah, blah. So I have to get them into a state of the early stages of gardening. Let's get all the oils in there. Let's take all this stuff out. Let's trim it on new moon cycles. And
Let's talk a little bit about that.
So-
Why trim your hair on new moon cycles?
well, that's the same time that a farmer would trim his trees. So it's the new moon encourages growth. So people generally want their hair to grow, unless they're coloring it.
I need to change my next appointment.
I do believe we're on a new moon cycle. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So,
I hope
but
so.
a lot of people feel that their hair, grows much faster when they do it in this method, and not everybody wants their hair to grow faster. Like if they're coloring their hair, they prefer it lasting a bit longer.
Right.
So it depends on your needs. Yeah.
So, Linda, you're just a wealth of information. I'm really, really excited to get this out there to people. But one other added benefit that you do that is totally different than any other hairstylist I've been to is that you're also an astrologer. And you asked for my birthday before I came to that first session, and you had my chart there, and you basically did a reading for me while you were doing my hair.
Yeah.
And then you just keep the chart, and so when I come back the next time, we talk about stuff, which we do that with our hairdressers. We do, it's kind of like a therapist sometimes.
Yeah.
But this is amazing, and you just do it because you love to do it, right?
I do it because I love to do it. First and foremost, I'm a natural hairdresser, and then I bring in all the goodies. I have fun with people. The hair is connected to our nervous system, and it gives us so much information. It gives me information,
Oh.
So the conjoining with my hands in your hair, your astrology chart, the whole network of the system that we're doing puts me in touch with you on a much deeper level. And even beyond the astrology chart, from time to time, there are relatives on the other side that come through.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, so that has happened. It's happening more these days. It's
Really?
wonderful. It's very exciting to bring somebody to a place of feeling peace and love. And then it's like, oh yeah, my hair. Oh yeah, oh yeah, it looks great.
Oh my gosh, I love this. You're just so unique and special, and I just want everybody to experience this. Make your appointment.
Yeah.
But first of all, okay,
Yes.
So speaking of woo-woo, we're going to ask you the questions that we ask all of our guests.
Yeah.
Okay, the first thing is, what's a favorite sound of yours?
It's like the sounds of nature, it's hard to pick, and this isn't even a sound of nature, but I love Native American flute. I mean, there's nothing prettier to me than that. But it's like I know the sounds when I hear them. It's like the wind in a canyon. I'm really attracted to Taos, New Mexico, and there are some interesting sounds there that, yeah.
Oh, cool. Yes.
It'd get really strange to start talking about that. So.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that. Okay, so what's a favorite memory?
The birth of my daughter.
Oh, and how old is your daughter?
She'll be 30 on her next birthday.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, moving right along here.
Another millennial.
Well, she and I opened the salon together, too. I was pregnant when I opened the shop, and she was born 6 weeks later. So,
So you gave birth to the salon and to her.
Everything. I gave birth to everything that year.
Wow.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
And you've been there for 30 years. That's right, because she's 30. So you've been in the same, we'll give the address and everything in the notes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's wonderful. And then the last, not the last one, but what's a favorite place? A favorite place that you have?
It's probably in my head.
That's a good thing to feel like it's a favorite place to be in your head. I love it.
Well, it can be. Yeah.
Then you can be anywhere.
That's right.
What makes it? What goes on in your head that makes it so much fun to be there?
Yeah, we want to be there.
Nothing.
Nothing. That's good. Okay, so final question, and this is the be all end. Okay, what is the most woo-woo thing you've ever done? And I'm sure that's going to be interesting.
Well, we've talked about a lot of it already, but I have to say, probably the first time I felt spirit come through me, for one of my clients is probably the most woo-woo thing that ever happened to me.
And when did that happen?
Blew me away.
Can you describe it?
Yes. It was a client of mine who had been trying to get pregnant for a long time. And I felt, when I was washing her hair, I felt this tapping on my shoulder. And I'm like, who? What? And I swear I saw this tall redhead Annie Oakley personality. And I'm like, oh my God. She says, I'm her grandmother. Tell her she's going to have a baby and she's going to call her Molly.
What?
Yeah. And I was like, no. She's been trying so hard. I can't tell her that. I can't tell her that. And she was just insistent, and she wasn't going to leave me alone. So finally I said, hey, look, do you have a grandmother that's like Annie Oakley? And she says, yeah. She goes, we're from Texas, and she rode in the rodeo.
Oh, my God. You're kidding.
And I'm like, oh, my God, I guess I can tell you this now. You're going to have a baby, and she wants you to name it Molly. Well, she had twins, and they were girls. She did not name them Molly.
Wow. But that was a significant,
that was the first episode of that, to that degree. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. It's wonderful.
And you weren't terrified when you turn around and see Annie Oakley standing behind you?
It's, guns
ablazing.
You think you're making it up.
Yeah.
The whole thing feels like an illusion, and truly for your audience out there, if they're having illusions, they might be real, so it's kind of an interesting thing, So anyway, to tie it up, I always say to the spirit, will you give me, one word that would mean something to her and no one else, So she said yellow summer squash. And I thought, well, that sounds ridiculous, yellow summer. So anyway, I tell her, I said, yellow summer squash. She nearly fell off the chair. And she says, oh my God. She goes, that was what grew in her backyard. That's what we ate all the time.
Wow.
And then when I saw her again, she said, Linda, I was in Whole Foods. And I heard a voice in my head said, check out the yellow summer squash.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah.
Oh,
so that was a lot of
that's
fun.
super interesting.
So that's my woo-woo.
Linda, I mean, I can't say how wonderful this has been. And we'd love to have you back. Well, as a matter of fact, I have an idea.
Yeah.
Because I'm getting my hair done in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
And I would love to kind of maybe record a little bit of it, or I will take some video and we'll put it on this episode,
that'd be a lot of fun.
show notes and everything.
Yeah.
And we'll print some pictures and things.
Awesome.
And we can do an update on my astrology chart.
All right.
So thank you so much for joining us.
It was really such a pleasure, and to have met you and for us to be friends. Thanks so much. And thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
Okay, it's lindakammins.com, LINDAKAMMINS. Go to her site, buy that brush for yourself, buy her shampoo, and start your journey on growing your hair garden. Thank you, Linda Kammins. So that's it for this episode. So what is your hair journey? Do you consider your hair a garden? Let us know your story, and we may feature it on an upcoming episode. Email us or send us a voice memo to podcast@soundmindbodypodcast.com. Thanks for listening, and please subscribe if you haven't already. And if you like the podcast, give us a review on iTunes. It really helps new listeners find us. Thank you to our producer, Tim Edwards, and the Inbound Podcasting Network. Get in touch. I'm on Instagram @ShiShiMelody and on Twitter @SheilaMelody1. Or find us on Facebook. Search for Sound Mind Body Podcast. I'm Sheila Melody. Join us next week as we explore, enlighten, and evolve.